And we're live with Miller and Son as we
Hey,
discuss the episode called Crosetti.
yep.
Take
As
it
far as
away.
I know, well, I guess it's one of only 3 episodes of Homicide that are named after a character that I can think of.
Good to know.
Yeah. So I don't have a real good summary of the episode, but I can say generally what happened because I've seen it several times. So I can kind of get to that. So the episode starts with well, at the very beginning in this, it's Bolander and Munch talking about bird droppings. But after that part, um, police are fishing a body out of the bay, and then Lewis comes into the squad room and he sees that Corsetti's mail is piling up. So he takes the mail from the box and puts it in Corsetti's desk. G asks him, "Yo, what's up with your boy Corsetti? Where's he at?" And Lewis is like, "Yo, dog, he got the flu and stuff, man, but he'll be in later." And they jabber a little bit, whatever. But then Bolander and Munch show up at the scene of the body dug out of the water, and it's Corsetti. So, yeah. And basically, initial evidence suggests it's a suicide, but Lewis refuses to believe that. So he does everything he can to get the death classified a homicide, and he obstructs Bolander's investigation by telling friends and neighbors of Corsetti not to give him any information. Corsetti's daughter shows up. The powers that be won't allow there to be an honor guard because it was a suicide, and they don't want there to be like public reaction to that, and so they're worried about public relations and all that good stuff. And then eventually, the ME report comes out that Bolander had a bunch of drugs in his system at the time that he died and the time he drowned in the water. So it's officially ruled a suicide. And Lewis is quite distraught about that. Um, and they have the funeral. Well, they have various things the detectives are like doing to make preparations for the funeral. Pembleton and Bayless go to get cookies or stuff like that. Pembleton's handling getting drinks for it. Munch goes to his brother, who's a funeral home person, to get a coffin. And Chris Thorman, you may remember as the blinded police officer, who's a friend of Crosetti and Lewis, he arranges for there to be a saxophone guy to play at the funeral. And as they are going through the funeral procession, excuse me, Pembleton decides to dress up in the fancy uniform and salute as the procession goes by. He didn't want to attend the mass inside the church because he tells Bayless, "Me and God are not on speaking terms." Fallout, continuing from the last story where he had what was left of his faith somewhat shattered by the events of the White Glove murders. So anyway, they never really come out and say any particular reasons for Corsetti's suicide. They just say it could be job stress, possible financial problems, or gambling stuff, and nothing's ever confirmed as a specific reason. Um, anyway, that's the gist of the episode.
I wondered if it was planned that way or whether the actor wanted to live.
Well, do you want me to tell you that story first? Or do you want to say your thoughts on the episode first?
I'll give it 10 out of 10.
Hey, cool. Me too.
There's nothing wrong with it. There was no tedious subplots with Felton, his wife. Yeah, the opening scene was good. Both, I think Munch, his brother might be an ENTP as well. They both made FI break inappropriate comments. Oh. She was being good detail on being buried outside of Christian burial because of suicide by G. But Crosetti got a church burial anyway. What else? Well performed by the actor playing Meldrick Lewis.
Yep. Yeah, I thought it was a really good episode for showing some of the characterization that we talk about a lot of the characters, because again with Homicide is you could say it's an atypical episode in some ways, but then it's a typical one in others, in terms of even though they're dealing with a death of one of their own, you still see there's more focus on the other characters than there is actually on Crosetti himself, even though they talk about him. But through that you see things about the other detectives and the other characters. Even the small touches of Homicide, to me, is what sets it apart from things. When you have stuff like the characters of the aunt and uncle at the funeral that start arguing because the uncle says he noticed Howard's red hair in the church.
Yeah, that was good.
And you had the scene, with Pendleton and Bayless in the car, where Bayless is telling Pendleton, we just got a memo about illegal parking, and Pendleton doesn't care. He's more proud that he was able to successfully park it, as well as he was. And then you have Bayless's moral indignation about how he shouldn't get it, try to get a discount on cookies for somebody who's a friend or whatever. Pendleton shows his frustration about that by yelling about shooting the car in front of him and stuff. That was a good thing with Pendleton, is like the final scene to me, it is great because it shows he's trying to be kind and honor Crosetti, but he still makes it about himself in a way. So it's typical. It's vintage Pendleton, because it's like that's how he's going to do it. Is he's going to make a show, but it's going to be for a good cause. So
yeah, it's FI versus FE, whereas the FE would be like go to the funeral, put your feelings aside.
And you have most of the rest of the squad doesn't. They're kind of like, that's the thing, is that most of them aren't particularly religious in any way either, but they're still going to show up at the funeral because it's just what you do. So, whereas Pendleton's the only one that really sort of takes a moral stand about it. Yeah. But yeah, I think it's great performances all around, and you get Ned Beatty gets a good chance to show several sides of Bolander too, because you see his dedication to his work and doing his job right, and using his instincts about the facts, but he's also he also has a moral statement he makes in the episode, because he says when he's talking to G about, if if this is the facts of it, this is how Crosetti, and this is his final statement, then what right do any of us have to wipe that away by saying it didn't happen? So even he, he gets called bloodless by Lewis, but at the same time you see some of his conscience himself, because he even makes a moral statement about it also. So
Was there any background to this? I mean, was it intentional that they didn't want to set it up and they wanted it to come out of the blue, or was there stuff going on behind the scenes?
There was definitely things going on behind the scenes. The basic gist of it is that the network, from the start, as I've mentioned before, wanted to interfere with things, and basically the network's position was, hey, this is great, you have this great new show and it's all realistic and getting all kinds of great critical acclaim, but we want the ratings to be better, so start putting in on the things that all the other cop shows have that yours doesn't, because they get better ratings. So make it sexier, add more female characters, have more shooting, and things, all the stuff that was what made Homicide more realistic. The network would fight them over this, and they would sort of begrudgingly accept this. So as far as the casting, the network said, basically, when they brought on the character of Russert, it was pretty much a straight up, new female character, and you got to drop somebody. But Fontana actually originally kind of fought that and said, well, we like our cast, we don't want to drop any of them. And I can remember back to one of the first couple of reviews you and I did, Ben, where you said something about how they needed to, that they should have made Howard better looking. And so you could have been one of those NBC executives, because their basic thing was, Crosetti's a fat slob, so he's the one you should get rid of, because there's no sex appeal there. So what Tom Fontana did was he had to be the one who told John Polito, okay, we have to bring in this female character, and we've got to get rid of you temporarily, but I'm going to bring you back, so it'll be basically, instead of a contract role, you'll be recurring, but we're still going to bring you back, so you're not going to be gone completely. We just have to temporarily, drop you for network reasons. Well, Polito didn't like that, and he made public comments to the press, basically how the show was going downhill and the changes they were making was going to make it, he specifically referred to them as being like the Titanic, and they were going down with the ship. And so the producers didn't appreciate those comments, and so Fontana said, all right, well, then we'll just kill you off.
Yeah, but I mean, it also means he probably never got employed again by the same people in subsequent shows. Like The Wire, or did he get employed in The Wire?
I don't know if he was ever on The Wire or not, but he certainly had plenty of other acting roles since then. But,
oh, good.
Anyway, in fact, I think if I remember right, he did work with Barry Levinson again. I think I remember there being some article I read where there was a movie that Levinson did that he cast Polito in. So there was no hard feelings between those two anyway. And Polito later said he regretted making the comments, and he said that he learned about Tom Fontana, that he's not the kind of guy. Basically, he thought Fontana was just BSing him when he said, I'm going to bring you back. He said, he at the time, he said, I didn't trust him because I'd been screwed by other producers, and I thought, this is just another line I'm being handed. So he said later on he learned that Fontana's not the kind of guy that does that, so that he regretted making those comments, and that was his mistake. But when he found out they were going to kill him off, the one thing that he said was, at least have me get shot in the line of duty or something. Don't have me kill myself or something. And of course, they did have him kill himself. So that's the that's the further tragedy of that one. But they were able to turn that into a really good episode. And like with most things in Homicide, it's not just like a one-off episode in terms of the aftermath of that, lingers beyond just the one episode. So
Yeah, I think it actually
realistic.
I think it actually makes it better that there's no build up to it because it's more of a surprise.
Yeah,
That's why I wondered if it was intentional.
That's why I said it was so important to watch the episodes in the right order, because when they originally ran them in the wrong order, the way I learned that Crosetti was dead was a casual mention in the episode, Lewis talking to somebody else about it. And it's like, well, wait a minute, what? When did that happen? And then after 2 other episodes, then they finally showed the one. That's why they had the caption about, one day last October, because when they originally ran them out of order, they did it. And they did it because they thought this episode would actually get better ratings because they could promote it as being this special episode or whatever. So they wanted to put that in the November sweeps period. So they ran 2 other episodes in October before this one, and then So yeah. The moral of the story is network people are stupid. But again, they have a job to do too, and if their network doesn't get, stuff good, then they don't get paid and they lose their jobs too. So they're all just trying to, do what they're supposed to do. And really, Homicide, it could be said, as much as the network may have tried to interfere with things and stuff, and it not, everything didn't end up perfect, it's still actually pretty. It shows that there were people at the network that did believe in the show, that it lasted as long as it did. Because there are some other shows that if it had the same ratings, they would have canceled much earlier. And with Homicide, in fact, they even gave it 1 extra season. Basically, the 6th season was going to be the last, but then Seinfeld ended. And so they actually had, basically because of that, they had a extra spot, and they also had to do a deal to keep ER on the network, so they didn't have as much of a budget to go after or start new shows. So they basically were like, well, we can keep Homicide around 1 more year. So that's what they did. So they had 1 final season, and so that at least gave them a chance to have a final episode.
So they spent a lot of money on ER.
Oh yeah, because ER was the #1 show at that point, and they were actually in a bidding war because other networks wanted to get ER. So with the production company that ran ER, it wasn't produced by the a network-owned company. So they were basically shopping their services. Hey, we're #1. We don't have to stay on NBC. We can go to another network and they can pay us more. So NBC did keep ER, but they paid a lot of money for it.
I think NBC, when they do shows, they should put it in the contract so this stuff doesn't happen. I mean,
Yeah, well, there's a lot of stuff that goes into all that I won't pretend I understand.
The same with the cast's contract. Don't let them have a point where they can renegotiate much higher. Do it so it's for the duration of the series, and they don't renegotiate it after 4 years.
Well, I mean, there's some that are set from the beginning. For instance, with the soap opera actors, most of them, other than the just really long-running people that have special deals that the rest of them, in the general, most of the actors are on 13-week contracts, so they never know beyond 13 weeks whether they're gonna. So that's why when there's somebody starts on a soap opera, basically, when they get let go, it's at the end of that 13-week period, or it's 26 weeks, whatever. It's some divisible by that, because their contracts are just renewed for 13-week periods. And there was one great actress who got the best of that on Guiding Light, because she obviously was aware of that particular thing. She was one of the most popular people on the show, and they had no intention of getting rid of her. And what she did was she took a vacation at the end of her contract and then didn't come back. So she basically just left them in the lurch, and they ended up recasting the part. But she one-upped them by just being like, I'm going to take my last 3 weeks off and then just not come back.
Did she have any get any work afterwards?
Yeah, I think so.
Good.
I don't remember exactly what she did after that, but But there was a lot of people in the industry that said that was responsible for changing some of the ways that they approached contracts for the soap opera people. So.
I think they made them sign 7-year contracts on Star Trek. In fact, Patrick Stewart only signed it because he thought it wouldn't get picked up. He just wanted the money for the pilot of Next Generation.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I remember one of the so Denise Crosby, was that her name?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, she left after the first season and then later said she regretted it.
Yeah, just a bit. All those residuals.
Yeah.
That was the difference. Just a quick thing about it. So people is that the acting was a lot better in Star Trek Next Generation than Deep Space Nine. On average. Anyhow, away from that, we'll get back on track. So, Jeff, have you got any reviews of this episode? To quote from?
Not offhand, no. I mean, I have read that a lot of people liked it, but I don't have like any particular thing that I have on hand that I can see. There's something. I guess this is just somebody's. There's a blog site that has a review of it. But I think I read this a while back. But this mentions that Crosetti's death came as a surprise because nothing in the episodes prior to Crosetti foreshadowed this, other than the fact that he wasn't in them, and they said he was on vacation. So, I mean, if you if you wanted to make something out of that, obviously you could. Is he really on vacation? And they never even really say that for sure, whether or not he actually took the vacation and came back and killed himself after that, or whether he never went to Atlantic City. They never specify.
I think for something like that, it's best that it wasn't foreshadowed.
Yeah, in fact, I wanted to ask you actually, because you're fresh eyes and ears to this. So, what did you think that they, at the beginning of this episode, that they telegraphed it too much? I mean, what was the moment in which you realized that Crosetti was dead?
When they actually said, for sure, is when they said that you saw his dead body and then saw him slice the top of his brain off. His cranium.
No, I mean, when you were watching it, like in the scene, because
when they gave him the badge and his material.
Okay, so you didn't connect it before that?
Well, what I mean is like when they found the body and when they gave him the material, like the badge and not the badge, his effects. And when it showed that this is a police officer.
Okay, so that was the moment you realized that it was Crosetti?
Or just after, I can't remember.
Yeah, see that's what, because I was like, since I couldn't see it with not knowing it already happened, I couldn't know whether or not I would have figured that out, because to me, watching it again, it seems like they set it up as too obvious that that's what it is, because they go straight from Lewis saying, the thing about, I've called his house, I've left messages, and he hasn't gotten back to me. And, after already showing them fish the body out of the water, and then they show Bolander walking up, and then they have...
Yeah, I don't think it was too obvious.
Really? That?
Yeah.
No.
What made you think that, though?
It looked like Crosetti. And they were just talking about Crosetti, and I was like, oh, Crosetti. Hey, that looks like Crosetti.
Well, in the episode, they didn't talk about him before they fished his body out of the water. Yeah, the opening scene, they don't mention him. It's just Bolander and Munch talking about bird crowd.
All I remember is one thing I saw. I remember one picture of that episode, and that's his body in the water.
Yeah.
And I remember him looking like Crosetti at that moment.
See, the funny thing is, like, even though I had it spoiled for me by the previous episode, the previously broadcast episode, I still didn't. I think when I was initially watching it, I didn't in any way connect it when they were fishing the body out. Like, that didn't occur to me at all. But I can't remember after that what the moment where I realized, okay, this is supposed to be Crosetti. I don't remember. But obviously I wasn't shocked by it since they had, like I said, spoiled that already. But I don't remember that moment. So I was curious, Ben. That's why I asked, because I kind of I just like to know, how something affects other people that way. So
yeah, I think it was better that there was no foreshadowing of it, because then we get a similar shock to the characters, and that's the main premise of it, is the shock
right
of the suicide, and then trying to understand, and then not accepting that, and it makes the audience more understand Meldrick's point of view. It's best not, in that sense, it was best not to set it up, because it makes us closer to Meldrick's point of view.
Yeah.
More of a shock, and and it also will send a message to the audience that, stuff can come. Stuff's not going to be telegraphed in terms of being foreshadowed.
Yeah, I can think of one thing in the future that I won't tell you what is, that comes completely out of nowhere.
It's usually that thing, Voice Tech mentioned it, where you have this thing where, someone talks about someone and they feature them quite a bit just before they die.
Right.
It's sort of
and actually, that's one of the reasons there were a few episodes, like on the DVD in later seasons, there's some where they include the previously on thing that they showed before the episode. And on a few of those, I deliberately didn't show Morgan those before the episode, because the previously on had things in it that kind of clued you into stuff that would happen in the episode. Because it's like, it was better if you forgot about either particular people or certain things that happened and weren't reminded right before this happened. It would be more of a surprise when something happened in the episode than if the previously on was like, hey, remember when this happened with this guy? Something in this episode is going to have something to do with it.
Battlestar Galactica was even worse than that, for showing clips of the actual episode that they were about to show right at the beginning of the program, like a little trailer. And I used to close my eyes when that was on.
Yeah, I've never been a big fan of that. Really, the only show that I can think of that did that I ever sort of thought it could be effective was Adventures in Odyssey, the way they did it. And of course, it's a radio show, so you don't have the visuals of seeing what anything looks like, but you did. And they pieced them together in a way that did sort of make it sound like, okay, what the heck's going on here? And it didn't reveal like important plot points. It would just have certain dialogue back and forth that would clue you into certain things that were happening. So they were able to do that more effectively than any other time I've seen them anything do that. But I'm still not a big fan of that technique of showing stuff that's going to happen in the episode. And I don't remember what the promos for this episode were like, but I wouldn't be surprised if those also spoiled the shock of the episode. And of course, like I said, since they already ruined that anyway for people that saw the previously broadcast episode, but it wasn't,
it's hard to promote it without giving it away.
Well, right. So, and see, there were some shows that...
What's tonight? Everyone's upset for some reason.
Yeah. Well, there were some shows that when they did kind of sweep stunts of somebody gets killed from the main cast, that would be the promo. It would be like, they'd flash pictures of like everybody in the cast, and then you hear a gunshot, like, tonight someone will lose their life or something. They do things like that on some shows.
That's fine.
They did it on Beverly Hills 90210, and even though I knew before the episode even started who it was going to be, because they had already basically made that character extraneous. Yeah. So it was like, oh, that's cop out. They're gonna kill him off, and then that was the beginning of the end of that show. I won't lie and say I stopped watching it because there were hot chicks on the show. I kept watching it for longer than that, but the plots did start to go downhill at that point.
Was it related to Melrose Place?
Yeah, I mean, I was in high school as a teenager. I can't lie and say that there weren't things that could appeal to me with nothing but that. I mean, there was a show with Pauly Shore and Charlotte Ross, where they had Charlotte Ross wearing a different tight outfit every single week, and The show was stupid, but I kept watching.
There's a tight outfit for Jenna in the next episode of Blade 7.
All right, well, got something to look forward to there. But so well, I mean, we can talk about that after this ends. But I guess I don't know. Was there more stuff you wanted to say about this?
Ooh, more stuff. Tricky.
Not trying to be tricky. I'm just wondering,
G was good, showing the SJ side of a positive SJ side.
Yeah, I think
him getting angry as well with the authorities.
Yeah,
that was good.
Yeah, the STJ's got that bulldozer, and they get angry. They can be scary. And he's a big guy anyway. Yeah, there's little great character moments. Again, what I go back to say that the good shows have realistic dialogue and including realistic ways where conversations end awkwardly. You had G and Pembleton talking about, whether he was going to be at the funeral, and G says it's not about faith, it's about friendship. And you have Pembleton repeats the word friendship, and then he just does this kind of wave. He gets up and leaves and does this little wave because it's like he can't think of anything to say in response to that. And I just love little moments like that.
Yeah, that's good. Should have caught on.
What's that?
I said it should have caught on, that kind of thing. But I haven't watched much modern telly.
Well, I don't anymore either, but I did obviously for many years, and I can think of 3 shows off the top of my head that were very good at that in terms of having those awkward ends of conversations that were realistic. Homicide, Everwood, and My So-Called Life. Right. Those are the 3 shows that I think of off the top of my head that were good at that.
So in a review, you might put, I love dialogue, it's so awkward.
Yeah. Well, that's what I said about My So-Called Life. That was a show that did the most realistic portrayal of teen angst in television history. I've never seen anything that could compare with that. Though Everwood came close, and it wasn't as teenager focused, although it had teenage characters, but it had a lot of adult characters too. So, but yeah. Anyway, so yeah.
So we can add on a little callback to the previous review with what was your favourite phrase that I used in the last review video, the Blade 7 one?
My favorite phrase that you used.
Yeah, that said was new to you.
Yeah, I remember saying that, but now I can't remember what it was.
Was it sticky out?
Sticky outy? Was that what it was?
Yes, sticky outy ears.
Sticky outy, yeah.
Right. Right then, I think that qualifies as Vandom. So it's a goodbye from me.
All right, well, join us next time for The Last of the Watermen. And,
okay.
Once we're off air, then I'll tell Ben how that starts so he can make sure he's watching the right episode for next time, too.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching, and leave a comment.
Yep.
Our poor Homicide reviews don't have any comments, so if you're watching, leave us something and tell us you're watching.
Yeah, because we don't want to have to review Game of Thrones in order to get more views.
Nah, I probably